Well, it seems like we may never know who left their cocaine at the White House. The Secret Service wrapping up its investigation without finding the culprit or even interviewing the roughly 500 staff members because it would put a strain on resources. They also didn't talk to Hunter Biden. And let me repeat that. They also didn't talk to Hunter Biden. Rest assured, however, the gumshoe ladies of The View have a new working theory on who's behind it.
So is this more fodder for the Republican machine, conspiracy machine?
No matter what the answer would have been, they were always going to blame Hunter Biden. They are weaponizing Hunter Biden against his dad as an effective tool to get his dad to lose his cool and to get his dad to, feel the heartache. And there's people who might believe that it was planted for somebody so that then they could advance the Hunter Biden narrative.
Well, if The View believes that happened, it didn't happen. And with the coke fiends still at large, the Biden administration is getting mocked for patting themselves on the back.
They did the best they could to track down how it got there and who it might have belonged to, and they just were not able to come up with any forensic evidence that proves it.
We believe that the Secret Service did a thorough investigation. Of course, we're going to have confidence that they're going to do their jobs and do everything that they can to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, they got to the bottom of it. But even Russiagate prosecutor Andrew Weissman can't spin what the White House did as a good job.
The Secret Service here looks like they can't find a dead cow in a closet. I mean, this is really just not a sufficient investigation. But you should do more than just say there were no fingerprints or DNA on the evidence, and we looked at surveillance logs and we didn't see somebody actually leaving it there, which seems highly unlikely.
Judge, and that's on MSNBC.
Yep.
That was a pretty good line, by the way. Cow in a closet.
Yeah, that was good. I couldn't quite figure that one out, but it was good. Look, he's absolutely right. It's not just about forensic evidence. I mean, I prosecuted loads of drug cases, and as a judge, I sat in narcotics part. The last thing you hear about are fingerprints on a glassine envelope, okay? I mean, you can get them clearly. If you're desperate, you can. But it's more about the witnesses, who was in the proximity, talking to people afterwards, and the claim that, we didn't have the resources. It would be a strain on resources to talk to 500 people, as if finding a controlled substance in the White House is not a serious event. And the only outrage through the whole thing is not the outrage that it was in the White House, but how incredibly irresponsible to ask if the Biden family has been excluded. And look, here's the bottom line. It didn't take 11 days to close the investigation. It took 11 days to cover it up. And any prosecutor worth his or her salt knows that when you change the location of where it was found 3 times, you are literally playing with the facts. And I want to speak to the person who made that statement from the library, the hazmat and fire department people, to say, show me on a map where this was, and let's get to the bottom of this. And the Secret Service, you're better than this. You're absolutely better than this. But then if you're committed to taking care of Joe and covering up for Joe, as you did when you pulled that illegal gun from a trash can near a school when Joe wasn't even the vice president, when you went to get that pistol permit application that was evidence of a crime that was not part of your job, then, you're bought out by Joe Biden.
Yeah, it is weird, Harold, that the coke seems to be more mobile than Joe Biden is in the White House. And all of these great tools that we have that they used on the January 6th, rioters is somehow now missing. What are you trying to get away with, Harold? What's this big game?
My experience when I was in Congress and outside of it with the Secret Service is, to your point, Judge, they are an organization filled with consummate pros. But this issue here, I would agree with you. 2 things concern me and bother me, and I think you have to give MSNBC and Andrew Weissman some credit for those who may think he is an ultra-partisan. He's, I think, laying out the facts here as some, at least around this table, see it as well. 2 things concern me. If there are 525 people who were persons of interest, for lack of a better way of describing them, Judge, it would seem to me they could do some pretty good background checks and maybe even narrow that list down and ask all those people what happened. 2, the security apparatus in the White House needs to be upgraded. If the cameras can go out for a day or for several hours, at least that's what the public narrative here is, then something's wrong. In fact, the apparatus when you walk into the White House needs to be upgraded or improved. You can't walk in most buildings here in New York City without walking through some kind of security apparatus, and certainly not a government building here in the city. Kenya, when I went for jury duty, I had to walk through 2 security apparatus. I had to empty everything from my pockets. So I hope they look at that and can understand that there's concern here. Mine is not from a partisan standpoint. I don't believe this is Hunter's. I think it's maybe a little irresponsible to suggest that in light of his past and the things that he has overcome. But as an American, in the house that is the most important public housing in the world, where the President of the United States lives and works, we should have a better security apparatus than they apparently have right now.
Should Hunter be questioned like those 500 people?
No, not if he's not a person of interest.
Why is he not a person of interest?
If he was not there, Judge,
he was there on Friday.
Tell me, if he were not in that area, why would you question him? As a prosecutor, as a judge?
Well, first of all, if they don't have cameras, they don't know who is in that area. And if he's in the White House, then he certainly is someone who is a person of interest, given his background.
So if they've narrowed
and his ability to segue the White House.
I don't want to quarrel with you. My only point is this: if they've narrowed it to 525, and that's the number that I'm basing on what the Secret Service said, if he's a part of that 525, then he should be questioned. But if he's not, they should not.
Interesting, Jesse. Why is it that whenever there's no surveillance cameras, these unsolved mysteries only go in one direction?
Like Epstein?
Yeah, like Epstein. Mysteriously. But then when it's you, when you were at the January 6th rally rioting, and you were wearing that big, giant, funny Viking hat, everybody caught you, Jesse.
Well, that's because I'm an FBI informant.
Okay,
that's why I haven't been questioned. Imagine if The View was around in the 90s. They'd probably say OJ was innocent. He was guilty, Harold. I could see them saying, oh, Court TV is weaponizing the murders against OJ Simpson. It was probably Cato. He was white. He framed OJ.
Are you tired of the word weaponizing?
Yes.
Can we stop that?
Yes.
I agree.
I don't even really understand what it means, but I do know this. If this was the Trump White House, we'd still have fun with the story. We'd say Stephen Miller was a person of interest because he's skinny and fidgety.
That's true.
Skinny and fidgety.
And we'd say the mooch was a person of interest because of how zany and off the wall he was on the phone call. But look at the lengths the government goes to knock these things down. They spent 2 years on an investigation of a crime that never happened.
Right. Yep.
They're worried about violating people's civil liberties. Yeah. They rummaged through Melania's underwear drawer. Mm-hmm. They won't make Hunter open his backpack. Make Binder pee in a cup. You won't polygraph any of these people. This is ridiculous. If they're going to tap your phone and raid your house, the least you could do is maybe question somebody. I don't trust this government to investigate itself, and I'm sick of the government getting away with things that we get locked up for. You know Hunter had a conversation with Joe over the weekend. Son, was it yours?
I doubt it.
Dad, I swear it wasn't mine. This time I swear. How many conversations have they had?
I thought they don't talk about anything.
That's right. It's not about the business.
How dare you get between the love of a father and his son?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, really.
You know, I apologize to Hunter.
You know what the other thing, too, is has a reporter since, I don't know, it was about a week ago, asked about the drug itself, whether it had fentanyl in it, because that is also, it's a symbolic statement that something that can come from across our border can actually make it to the White House.
So I was going to make the same point that some of these investigations that Christopher Wray couldn't comment on last week have been going on for 7 years.
Yeah.
And this gets wrapped up in 11 days? Really? And you think that you've done your best? The other thing that happened with the media is that the story immediately became Republicans pounce on the cocaine left in the White House. And that's a signal to the rest of the media that you don't have to cover the actual substance of what happened. You can just talk about the Republicans' reaction, like Republicans jump on Biden for the baby formula crisis. Republicans get after Pete Buttigieg for the airlines, right? So that's a signal that you don't actually have to cover the substance. However, this story is hurting Joe Biden for 2 reasons. One, it's an ongoing story. 2, it shows that he has a lack of respect. If it's 525 people, those people were invited to the White House, and somebody disrespects you so much that they are willing to cause you this kind of a problem, and you don't care, and you don't want to find out who it is, I think, again, it all goes to the top, not the cocaine.
You're saying Dr. Jill? She is a doctor, you know. She's a doctor.
Well, if it has fentanyl in it, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a painkiller.
Yeah.
All right.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.